The first sign was not an alarm. It was not a warning light. It was not Houston shouting through the radio. It was water inside an astronaut's helmet while he was floating outside the International Space Station with nothing below him but Earth. At first, Luca Parmitano thought it might be sweat, a small, cold feeling behind his head. Annoying, but not terrifying. Then the water moved. It reached his ears, then his eyes, then his nose. In space, water does not fall away from your face. It floats, sticks, spreads, and waits. His radio began to fade. His vision started to blur. The station around him became harder to find. And then the impossible truth became clear. A man could drown in space while wearing a suit built to keep him alive. On July 16, 2013, Luca Parmitano left the International Space Station for what should have been a controlled and routine spacewalk. The mission was called EVA-23. Outside the station, nothing feels casual, but this was not supposed to be one of the great emergencies in space history. Parmitano was trained, calm, and prepared. NASA and its partners had built procedures for almost every danger they could imagine: fire, pressure loss, tether failure, oxygen problems, tool loss, electrical hazards. Spaceflight is never safe, but American space operations are built around discipline, preparation, and the belief that the right people, under pressure, can solve the impossible before it becomes fatal. For the first part of the spacewalk, everything looked normal. Parmitano moved carefully along the station, secured by tethers, following instructions, surrounded by the blackness of orbit and the blue curve of Earth below him. Then he felt something cold at the back of his head. At first, he reported it without panic. It seemed strange, but not immediately deadly. Maybe it was moisture, maybe condensation, maybe something small inside the suit. The team did not yet understand what was happening, because the suit itself was not screaming for help. There was no dramatic explosion, no cracked visor, no sudden loss of pressure, just a small amount of water appearing where water should never be. That is what makes this story so disturbing. The danger did not arrive like a monster. It arrived like a detail easy to underestimate. But outside a spacecraft, details are not small. A single wrong reading, a single blocked line, a single leak in the wrong system can turn a machine of survival into a trap. Minutes passed, and the water did not stop. It began spreading from the back of Parmitano's head toward the front of his helmet. It reached his ears first, and suddenly communication became harder. The radio was still there, but sound was distorted. He could not trust what he was hearing. Then the water moved toward his eyes, and vision became a problem. Outside the station, losing vision is not like walking through a dark room. There is no floor. There is no natural direction. There is no simple way to stop and reorient yourself. The astronaut has to know where his body is, where the station is, where the handrails are, where the tether is, and where the airlock is. Now all of that was happening while water slowly filled the one place he needed to keep clear: his face. The call was made to end the spacewalk. Parmitano had to get back to the airlock. That sounds simple until you remember where he was. He was outside a structure moving around Earth at roughly 17,500 miles per hour. He was surrounded by equipment, rails, cables, modules, sharp edges, shadows, and blinding sunlight. And now he was becoming partially deaf, partially blind, and increasingly isolated inside his own suit. The scariest part was that he could not wipe his face. He could not open the helmet. He could not drain the water. He could not simply take a breath of fresh air. His suit was supposed to be his private spacecraft. Instead, it was becoming a sealed container with water floating inside it. This is the point where the story turns from a technical malfunction into a survival story. If you want more real space emergencies told this way, subscribe to Orbit Ledger and leave a like. Because what happened next is exactly why space history is not just about rockets and flags. It is about people who stay calm when the machine around them starts making no sense. Parmitano began moving back, slowly, carefully, hand over hand. He followed the safety line and used his memory of the station to guide himself. Every movement mattered. Moving too fast could make things worse. Breathing too hard could raise panic. Losing contact with the structure could become catastrophic. The water kept spreading. It covered more of his face. It reached his nose. He later described being unable to see clearly and struggling to hear. The world outside the helmet was becoming smaller, quieter, and less useful. The most advanced laboratory ever built in orbit was right beside him, but for a few terrifying minutes, it might as well have been miles away. Then the station moved into darkness. The sun dropped behind Earth, and the light disappeared. That moment was critical. With the visor already compromised and his senses failing, the darkness removed one more layer of orientation. Imagine trying to find your way back to a door while floating outside a building, blind, underwater, in silence, with no up and no down. That was the shape of the danger. Not cinematic noise, not fire, not debris. Just a man inside a suit, following training through a problem no astronaut ever wants to face. He was not fighting space itself. He was fighting the slow betrayal of the equipment designed to protect him. He reached the airlock, but reaching it did not instantly save him. He still had to get inside. The suit still had to be handled. The helmet still had to come off. Until then, the water was still there, close to his eyes, nose, and mouth. The emergency had become brutally simple. Get him out before the helmet becomes the place where he dies. When the crew finally removed the helmet, water came out. Not a tiny drop, not a little fog. A significant amount of water had collected inside the suit. Later investigation found that the source was connected to the suit's cooling system. A failure allowed water to enter the ventilation loop and move into the helmet. It was a terrifying kind of failure because it did not look dramatic at first. It did not announce itself in a way that matched the danger. The suit did not immediately tell everyone, clearly and loudly, that an astronaut was at risk of drowning in orbit. The warning came through the astronaut himself, through what he felt, what he could no longer hear, and what he could no longer see. NASA treated the incident seriously because it exposed a nightmare hidden inside routine operations. Spacewalks are already among the most dangerous things humans do. They place a person outside the protection of a spacecraft, inside a suit that must provide oxygen, pressure, temperature control, communication, and mobility all at once. If one part fails, the astronaut cannot step aside and repair the environment. The suit is the environment. The suit is the room. The suit is the air. And on EVA-23, that room began filling with water. Luca Parmitano survived because he stayed calm, because the teams reacted, because training held, and because the distance back to safety was just short enough. But the lesson is deeply uncomfortable. Space does not need to attack humans in spectacular ways. It does not need explosions, fireballs, or broken windows. Sometimes the most dangerous failure is quiet, a hidden blockage, a small leak, a system behaving almost normally until it does the one thing it must never do. And that is why this incident remains so haunting. An astronaut nearly drowned in space, not because the mission was reckless, but because in orbit, survival depends on thousands of parts doing their job perfectly. When one of them stops, the universe does not give you time to understand why.